Morning, everybody. She's trying to figure out her sound. Just introduce myself. My name's Tenielle MaGee, and I'm a physiotherapist, and I work in Alberta, Canada. And I've collaborated with Catherine on this new safety video. And today I also have Haley with me, and Haley works alongside me at our clinic and as well at our other company called Navisus, and she's our primary ergonomist. So she's here in case anybody had any questions about their ergonomic setups or things like that as well. So that's why Haley's on board. So if you want to say hi, Haley.
Hi. Hello, everybody.
I still can't hear you though, Catherine. I don't know what she's got, if she's, oh, yeah, she's trying to figure it out. Okay, so while she's trying to figure it out, maybe what we'll have Haley do is just talk about like a general desk setup. Do you think you could do that for us? Haley, maybe talk about some of the common mistakes that you see when you look. Haley does a lot of virtual desk setups, and so she sees all sorts of different ways that people are working at home. So maybe you could just comment on that for us, Haley.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that for ergonomics for desk setups, one of the most common mistakes that I see specifically with photographers is working on a laptop. Can be really convenient and really helpful if you're going place to place, if you don't have an actual office that you're working out of. If you're working out of home, it's very common to be working on a laptop, which can be really efficient and effective, but it does put us in poor positions very often. And so making sure that we're working in neutral positions is really important. And that doesn't just mean making sure that you're sitting high enough, but also that your neck is elevated in a neutral posture as well. So typically, if I was working on a laptop, sitting at maybe my kitchen table, I would be working like this position for many hours. I know you do a lot of editing. So making sure that we can elevate that screen so that we're looking at it in a neutral posture. The only thing with a laptop is typically when you move that screen up into a neutral posture, we lose the ability to type. So making sure that, again, we're not typing up here. We want that neutral posture to remain the same. And so having an external keyboard is usually really effective and can make a huge difference for people working at laptops at home.
Yeah. For sure. And often, we do see this quite a bit where people are using the mouse that's on the laptop, which is kind of a big no-no, I would say. Hey.
Yeah, we see lots of tendinitis. We see lots of carpal tunnel, lots of clicking. Again, trying to keep neutral posture. As soon as we're using a typical mouse, we're going and internally rotating those wrists and those arms. Ideally, this is more of a neutral posture for our bodies. And so those ergonomic mice that we use, like so, can help to maintain that posture.
Yeah, for sure. And there's actually quite a few pretty cheap options now, hey, between Amazon and Costco and stuff like that. Is there some go-tos for you that you like?
Absolutely. So I would say Amazon can be really cost effective. Just because it's expensive doesn't mean that it's ergonomic. And I would also say that don't get completely stuck on needing something that's very expensive or making your entire office space or your home space very ergonomic, as long as it's improving. So if you think about a kitchen chair is going to be more ergonomic than sitting on the floor. An office chair is going to be more ergonomic than sitting at the table. So you're always looking to improve your space. There's not a high standard that you have to meet to be considering ergonomics. So yeah, just always improving. And that Costco actually currently has a sit-stand desk. So if that's something that you're looking into, I believe it's around $330. So really cost effective. These items are becoming a lot more achievable at a frugal rate. So it's really good to see on the market.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, that's in Canadian dollars, so it'd be even cheaper in the US as well. So usually Costco is kind of similar between both Canada and US, but it may be, usually the prices are a little bit cheaper in US dollars. Do you want to comment maybe for us what you recommend? People always ask, like, should I stand? Should I sit? How should I do my desk? What's your recommendation usually?
Yeah, so typically I wouldn't say that sitting or standing is better for the body. I would say that movement is the most important thing to keep circulation, to prevent cardiovascular issues, all those sorts of things that we want to avoid. But in regards to ergonomics, moving, I would say about 45 to every 50 minutes from position to position, and adding in some micro breaks in between. So if you have 6 hours of editing to do, absolutely, I don't want you sitting at your desk for 6 hours, even if you are in perfect ergonomic position. So getting into a position where you can stand for 45 minutes to 50 minutes and then going back into that seated position would be ideal. Like I said, getting that movement, micro breaks, standing up and even doing 30 seconds of walking, that would be fantastic, is getting that blood flow again. And then we always consider, if you're working on a screen, we want to be looking about every 20 minutes. You want to look about 20 feet away for about 20 seconds. So it's a 20-20-20 rule. If you're looking at the screen for long periods of time, it can be really exhausting on our eyes, give lots of visual fatigue, and can bring on some headaches, migraines, those sorts of things. So if you've ever dealt with that, remember that 20-20-20 rule.
That's awesome. Thank you. Did anyone have any comments for Haley while she's on? We're not going to keep her on for the whole time, so we'll just give a second here to see if anybody had any ergonomic questions or comments. Just so that you guys know, we do have an entire module about ergonomics where we talk about different posing tables and things like that as well. We also get into a pre-stretched program and what that looks like, and we do keep a copy of that as well on there. So we've got one question here. I often have to edit sitting on my sofa. Do you have any tips?
So the sofa obviously feels probably quite comfortable at the time. Everyone's a little bit different. You might have some pains and some strains. Hard to speak on that. But in regards to ergonomics, I would say that the sofa isn't going to be your best posture if it's possible, if it is avoidable. Oh, Kathleen, we can almost hear you there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, kind of. We can hear kind of some scratching there.
I don't have a clue.
Oh, there we go. We can hear you.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
Oh,
there you
it's
go.
like my phone just decided to not work. Like, it doesn't even make any sense. I'm so sorry, you guys.
That's okay. I'll just finish this question and then I'll hand it back over to you. Was just going to say that if ideal, sofa wouldn't be the best place to be doing your editing. Again, it's probably for long hours. I would recommend maybe a kitchen table where you're going to be sitting up a little bit higher. You're going to be better supported in your lumbar spine. But if there is no other option and you end up finding that the sofa is the most comfortable place, I would suggest if you can get a tabletop that you can put on your lap that's going to bring that screen up a little bit higher. But just be mindful that you're, again, going to be forced to use that computer or the laptop mouse and forced to use that keyboard as well. So definitely improvements would probably be changing your position in the house. Yeah. But if not possible, that laptop holder on your lap would be great.
Yeah, awesome. I just want to make a comment from personal experience. I broke my leg last year and I had to work from the couch for several months. And that's exactly the setup that we decided on because of the situation I was in. I had to keep my leg elevated. And so we used, I just got a tabletop that could go over top of me. And I tried to just change my positioning as often as possible because nothing else was possible at that time. Although what I would say is that my back and my hips did get really sore just from sitting in that position, and I'm very grateful to be back at a desk for sure. So thank you for that, Haley. That was really great. Did you have any other comments or maybe some other tips for us before we let you go today?
I would say that typically I feel like the myth around ergonomics is that we typically are looking at office ergonomics. We're looking at desk spaces. We're looking at sitting at the computer and working on the computer. But I would say that ergonomics is so much more than that. To be mindful of your position, not only when you're at the desk, but also being mindful of your position when you're shooting. And when you're positioning baby, you probably spend a lot of time on your knees, on the floor, bent over in positions, shoulders reaching out in awkward positions. If you're doing newborn photography for long hours, you probably know that, well, the baby's not crying right now, finally asleep, like it doesn't matter, I'm in an awkward position, let's just get the photo. So I feel like your body probably takes more strain than you even realize. So yeah, ergonomics is much more broad than just sitting at the desk. And so being mindful. I love this collaboration between the two of you because I feel like you're bringing a lot of light to places that we needed. So yeah, it's a lot more broad, and it's good that you guys are being mindful of those spaces.
Yeah. We just had one more comment here, Haley. It says the 20-20-20 rule is very helpful. I feel drained a lot staring at the screen. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Try that and give that a go. I will leave you with one more thing. Everyone it's here, I want you to make a circle with your hand like this and find something across the room and put that thing in the circle, looking straight on with both eyes. Okay. Now I want you to close your left eye. You still see the image. If you still see the image, you are right eye dominant. Close your right eye. If you still see it with your left eye dominant. If you're ever working with two screens, make sure that you're not actually angling the screens centered to you. Mm-hmm. Center the main screen, your primary screen, and then whatever eye dominant you are, you would have that secondary screen off to the side. Yeah. So that can be really helpful too if you're finding a lot of strain with your eyes. That can be another helpful tip as well.
Yeah, as well as blue light blockers too. But I love that eye dominant. I'm very right eye dominant, so Haley's set my station up that way too. So that's great. Thank you so much, Haley. I think we'll let you off there, Haley, and you're off the hook.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. Take care.
Okay, have a good morning, Haley. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, so I have a few questions for you, but I'm glad you can see the questions that people are typing because Instagram just doesn't, this is like the rule of thumb, like nothing technology works when I need it to.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, thank goodness. Oh, that you're on here. Okay, so I just have a few questions for you that I'm sure our listeners are going to want answers to or probably have thought about in the past. So one of the questions would be, how do I know if a baby is in distress during a session?
Okay. I'm assuming we're talking about respiratory distress, or we could be talking about other types of distress as well, but the most obvious for sure is crying. Everyone knows that. But there is other signs of respiratory distress to look for. Things that you're going to look for sure, we do talk about this in the course, but blueness or a color, a change of color. If there's sweating, a really increase of breathing rate, if there's stridor, which would be kind of like airway sucking right in through here, or you're seeing retractions in the breath. And these are actually respiratory distress items. I mean, an infant would be in the hospital. They certainly wouldn't be having a newborn session at this point. But what you're going to look at, because you're going to have a baby that's medically stable, right, that you're seeing, is that there's all of a sudden change. So you have them in a certain pose, and all of a sudden they start crying and kicking, and they kick out of it. They're in distress. They don't like that pose. Or you have them wrapped. You are going to see changes in colors for sure, and maybe that's something you can talk about, Catherine. You're going to see the baby is going to have, red or blue. Their fingertips are going to change, but you need to continue to keep looking at this and continuing to check. And even if you're just checking and doing a simple pinch test where you're pushing down and coming back up again, you'll be able to see if there's still circulation happening. And that's often just because newborns will prioritize the internal organs, right, for all of their oxygen. And so the limbs, you'll see a little bit of change that'll happen there. Nasal flaring is one that is less obvious, but if a baby is flaring their nostrils, they probably are in a little bit of a distress. So you should be checking on that as well.
Yeah. And yeah, I feel like it's really important to train yourself to see the cues of a newborn. So rather than get so wrapped up in the pose or get so wrapped up in like all the other little details, yes, those are important, but number one priority is the infant. So it's really important when that infant arrives at the studio just to kind of, just watch the baby, see how the baby is interacting with you while you are wrapping them and posing them. You're going to notice things pretty quickly. If a baby starts to be in distress or reacts certain ways, you're going to see those reactions pretty quickly. So Yes,
Okay.
thank you, Tenielle, because I think you answered that perfectly.
Okay. Catherine, we do have a comment here. So it says, I've noticed with the Swaddle Pro wrap, when I do peak toes, the toes start to turn purple. Then I just take them out. It worries me. That's what she's talking about. Does this happen right away? Like, is it happening within the first few seconds, or is it happening after the baby's been in this position for a long period of time?
Can I tell you, Tenielle, what the Swaddle Pro is like?
Yeah.
So what it is it's a wrapping device that is like made out of a very thick, stretchy material. Think of like Spanx material.
Yeah.
And it's basically something that goes under a pretty wrap, and so it's very tight. It's very tight and to keep the baby in. I don't use one for that purpose.
Yeah.
But, that's just to give you context.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. If you're seeing purplish right away, I would say that that's a change in circulation, and so I think you're doing the safest thing there, Amanda, is unwrapping them.
Yeah, I agree too.
Yeah.
And also, like, just because you see, this goes for anyone and everyone, like, just because you see something being sold doesn't mean you need to buy it. Like,
Yeah.
It all boils down to, you should ask yourself this question: do I want to have a baby wrapped so tightly that it could lose circulation like instantly? And that I have found a lot of people say when using the Swaddle Pro. I don't have anything against it. I've never used it, but just from what I've seen in forums and from other people posting.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the stuff with things that are trending online, is that I'm sure the Swaddle Pro is the reason why you do it is because it's probably quicker, and it probably makes things easier for you. But is it safer? You really have to. Safety is always a sliding scale. It's not that it's safe or it's unsafe. Is there a safer way for you to do it? Maybe it'll take you a little bit longer to do the traditional wrapping methods, but that sounds like it's safer than this certain device. I'm actually not familiar with it, Amanda, but I will look it up afterwards and look. But you're right. If a limb is going purple immediately, that's a sign of distress.
Yeah. Okay, so I have another question for you. Are certain newborn poses unsafe for newborns?
Okay. So Catherine and I have been looking at a lot of different poses, and I think I don't really like to say something is safe or unsafe, because safety is a sliding scale. It's not black or white. It's not that this one pose is safe and this other pose isn't. It's going to be a sliding scale. So number one is going to be, have you practiced this before? Have you had education in this pose before? Is the baby a baby that has normal tone, or maybe they're a floppy baby? I mean, if you're dealing with a baby with very low tone, such as a child with Down syndrome, there's plenty of poses that are going to be unsafe for a child that doesn't have that type of tone. So there's a lot of things that come into place to say whether or not something's safe or unsafe. Also, how high you have the baby off the ground. I've seen several people's posing setups where they have a basket up on top of a chair, and sure, it looks adorable and it's absolutely cute, but what I look at is, look at how high that baby is up off the ground. Is there a way that we could do this in a safer way?
Mm-hmm. And Tenielle's not talking about where it's a composite shot. We have seen uncomposited, I don't even know if that's a word, but
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't even know how to say that, but they're not being secured by a spotter. And the photographer is taking these pictures with the baby in a basket on top of a high surface, and being like several feet away from the infant. And the thing is that, that's just not the best way to do things. Like, if you can do it safer, why wouldn't you do it safer? So it's definitely, just like you said, it's a sliding scale. You have to use your common sense, and you have to realize that, is it worth it to endanger the safety of the newborn just to take a picture, or can you do it a safer way by doing a composite and having a spotter be right there and protect that infant?
We have another question here, Catherine. Is the hands-on chin with a spotter nearby safe without direct contact, instead of doing like you would with Froggy?
Like the chin on hands pose, that's like this, like both hands underneath. I can't use both hands right now because I'm holding my phone. I just want to confirm the pose that she said.
Yeah, she says, is the hand on chin with a spotter nearby safe without direct contact? That's the question.
Hand on chin, or does she mean chin on hands? I have to clarify that because I
Yeah,
need to know
I have to clarify.
specifically.
I'd have to clarify that as well. However, all of those, any of these poses where it looks, you have to remember these are an illusion. So when you see these poses where the baby is sitting like this, they're actually not resting any weight through their hands, and they shouldn't be. This should be done as a composite shot, and it should be an illusion. So they're not actually resting their weight of their head, because an infant baby's head is actually quite heavy. And so that's the safest way for it to be done. Sure, you're going to see lots of different things done online. And then the question now is, she's confirming, she said, does it need to be done like a composite laying down with the body behind?
Okay,
I would say,
I think she's talking about the chin on hands pose where the head is resting on two hands stacked together and the elbows are spread apart. Yeah. So if that's the pose she's talking about, it is like, for one thing, if you pose the infant properly, the baby is perfectly balanced with a wedge underneath the weight of the head of the baby. And so if you have the proper training to pose that infant safely, it is still important to have your hand hover above the baby in between shots, because, and when you're hovering above the baby, having your hand just like an inch or two above the shot. I don't think the hand needs to be touching the head, but the baby, like literally you would just put your hand down if the baby was to move. So the baby would still be safe as long as you are having a spotter.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing, yeah, she said, yes, that's the one. So she's confirmed. Sorry, I'm saying she. I don't know if she's a she. I apologize. But anyways, so the other thing that I would say for sure is that have you been trained in this, and have you taken the proper training? Because just because you see something on TikTok or YouTube, it's not that you want to reproduce it immediately. So education's important, and then also considering. Oh, she said she's a C. Okay, perfect. I didn't mean to offend anybody. Thank you, Sparwood. And so that, that's the other, it's just a matter of consideration, because I do find that photographers choose things because they're cute and they're pretty, but we often don't think about the safety. And so that's just really what we're talking about here. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So I have another question for you. So, what should I do if a newborn has reflux or breathing issues during a session?
Okay. So hopefully you've already done, you've talked with the parents, and I'm hoping this is something that maybe you would even know before they came if you had a child with breathing issues. So maybe they had spent some time in the NICU. You need to know, are they coming in with an NG tube, or are they able to breathe on their own? These are important things to know. Reflux is common. You guys are going to see this all the time. And so depending on how many days it is after, how many days old the baby is, the parents may or may not. But I think your safe assumption is assume that most babies may have breathing issues or reflux, and then be prepared and planned. So at the beginning, make sure that you have lots of different poses in your toolkit. So maybe when you're setting everything up, you've got something where there's a side pose, there's a stomach pose, there's a back pose, there's, your bucket poses. You've got plenty of different ones in your toolkit. So if one's not working, you can move to something else. Any experienced photographers are going to know that if the baby's struggling with breathing or reflux, they're going to have a lot of trouble in the supine positions, which is face up, so laying right completely flat on their back. So making sure you have lots of posing tools and wedges and things like that so that you can get the baby into a better position. And just be prepared to move from one to the next. So you may have decided ahead of time that you were going to do these 3 poses in this order, but that may not be the way that you can do it. The other thing that Catherine and I have talked about before with reflux is don't overfeed the baby. So making sure that they have a really good feed before they get there, but not continuing to continue to keep feeding the baby, because then they're just going to keep having an upset stomach. It's going to get harder and harder and harder. Yeah. Catherine, we got another question here from Amanda. It says, my struggle is how to properly grab baby to move them from different poses, like holding under the jawline.
So Amanda, are you talking about moving from prop to prop, or are you talking about moving from one bed pose to another bed pose? So what I feel like, if I am transitioning an infant on a fabric, I have a very specific workflow that I follow, and essentially we want to do the least amount of movement possible when we have a baby in a position. So if the baby is laying on their tummy for, let's say, the bum up pose, then we're just going to gently, with our hands behind the neck and hands on both, like our hands on both the baby's wrists, one hand behind the neck, we're just going to roll that baby gently over onto the side, and then we would do the side sleeper. And for instance, let's say you start in the froggy pose. Well, then it's easy to just gently lay the baby down and reposition the ankles and the hands over top of each other to do the taco pose. So there's ways to just gently transition them between poses. You have to choose which poses you are most comfortable with, and then find the easiest movements with keeping hands behind baby so that the baby is safe. And don't be afraid to, use your arm, use your, like, the whole part of your arm, and then see what other tools you have that can add support. And if you don't feel fully comfortable with just yourself, then have the parent help you. There's nothing wrong about being extra safe.
Yeah, for sure. She's just commented now, Catherine, table poses like froggy to chin on hands.
Yeah, so for instance, I would probably go froggy to taco, and then I would pick the baby up, because you have to completely change the position of their legs. So like those first two poses, froggy and taco, the feet are in front of the face. How do you flip them backwards without making the baby uncomfortable? Well, the easiest thing is to pick the baby up and reposition them. Don't try to fiddle around with them on the fabric. It's way more uncomfortable for the infant. So I just think safest is best. Pick the baby up, reposition in your hands on your lap while you're supporting the infant. And I also, for the chin on hands, like to position them in that pose before I even lay them down on the fabric, which gets them ready. And most infants don't like to have their elbows pulled out for the chin on hands pose. So when you're getting them ready to do that in your hands, it's just a lot easier on them, and they're less likely to have any reflexes that could cause them to injure themselves, essentially.
Okay, we have another comment here. I had a baby that was so strong and froggy, she went to flop backwards, and my fast reflexes was to grab the baby safely. Have you ever had a strong baby so strong they try and go backwards in froggy? My comment here is that probably this baby was born with a high amount of tone. And so it's not necessarily a strength thing at this point, but there is a level of tone, and it's something we do talk about in our course as well. But froggy would not be a recommended pose for a baby with high tone, simply because they are going to move into extension positions. So they're not going to like to have any of their hips or their knees in a flexed position. And this is a reflex, and they're just going to kick out of it.
That's a great question. I'm glad that somebody asked that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we already talked about the wrapping and the circulation. Okay, should parents always be nearby during the session?
Yes, definitely the parent should be nearby. But again, be careful of your space, and you certainly don't want anybody tripping over top of each other. So worst case scenario, you're bumping into each other, you're falling into each other. So yes, you want them to be nearby, but remember you're dealing with a mom who just had a baby, and she is sleep deprived, and she is hurting, and she is all these things. You are going to have to be very specific with her of where you want her to be. So this is your chair, stay sitting here, put your hand here, say all of those things so that you make sure that the parent is in the right place. And then just making sure that you're feeling comfortable so that they're, you know, the more comfortable you are with, you know, with the baby moving and all those things, the better it is. But yes, absolutely use the hands. If you've got hands there, I would highly recommend working with the parent.
Can I just add one thing into that? So I find that just from personal experience that if the baby is near the mom too often, they just want to like feed. So they can smell the mom. So if you have the ability to have the mom sit in the furthest corner of the studio where they can visually see what you're doing, but they're not right next to you. And if you need that extra set of hands, use the dad, because the mom is healing. And so it actually can cause strain on her physically to be your assistant. So if you have the option, use the dad. If the dad's not an option, you can use the mom in certain situations, but just remember that the closer she is, the more baby can smell her and the more the baby is going to be difficult in order to accomplish your poses.
Awesome. We have another question here from Raquel, I believe. Is that why some babies have a harder time with wrapping when they are awake if they have higher tone? Can you explain a little bit further what you're having the harder time with the wrapping is? It could be, again, it could be extensor tone. So if you're trying to, again, get a baby up into a lot of flexion, it could be a lot of things. The baby may have something wrong with their hips, possibly. It could be that if there's something touching the bottom of their foot, there's something called a stepping reflex, which means the baby's going to kick out. So there could be some more reasons why you're having trouble with the wrapping. Now she's saying when they get out of the wrap.
I think, okay, so we have to think about that question because it could be one of like many reasons. So is the baby happy and just like wrestling with you and the baby's totally fine looking around and just like wants to kick and stretch? That's totally normal. If the baby is crying and screaming while you're wrapping them, that could be an underlying medical condition that we don't know and we're not aware. Or maybe a reason that is the baby cold and now is starting to warm up. Was the baby just changed to fresh diaper, so they're upset because they were just changed, and you just have to get them comfortable, and so they're just going to yell at you while you're wrapping them. That does happen quite often. It's not that you're doing anything wrong, it's just that they're awake, they're mad, and they want to be warm. Another thing too is if the baby's hungry, they're gonna fight you tooth and nail. So there's all these different things that you have to think about.
Yeah, there could be a few reasons why. I'm sorry, that's not a very good answer for her, but there definitely is probably more reasons why.
Okay, so last question, Tenielle, and then we'll let you go. Somebody's question is, do I need a newborn photography contract with a safety clause?
That is a great question for a lawyer. I'm going to say yes. I mean, the more you do, the better. But I'm going to say in my business, everything that I do, I speak to my lawyer and I have it done personally. So my recommendation, my advice is get a lawyer and ask them.
Perfect. That is awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for taking the time to join us live. Really appreciate all the information. Sorry about the technical issues I was having first. I'm so glad you just took control and had Haley on. Great. And we're very excited for everyone that's going to be getting the safety course. As you can see, Tenielle is extremely knowledgeable, and this course is going to be very beneficial for everyone who grabs it.
Awesome.
Okay, well, until next time, we will be going live with Tenielle a couple more times next week.
You got it.
And we will talk to everyone soon. Feel free to ask questions in the Facebook group. You can tag me or Tenielle. And also you can comment on this live and we'll probably get those questions.
Yes, for sure. Yes, I am in the Facebook group as well. So go ahead and feel free to tag me there.
Awesome. Okay, well, you have a great day. And thank you everyone who has joined us or will be watching the replay.
Awesome. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.